My question is kind of for Z, because at the end of this conversation, you talked about mental health and the way that the way that we're all being affected, and the way that we should think of it in a community sense, and that really struck a chord with me because I feel like I've been at this place with mental health where like I could use a roommate as an illustration. Like you maybe live with this roommate who says like my mental health is like the top priority, or like my mental health above all else. Like I won't sacrifice anything for my mental health. And I always felt like that was really selfish. And as a roommate, I always tried to be like, well, I'll put my mental health on the line here and like, do something maybe to help, or like, go out of my way. And like maybe also somewhere down the line I'll get something in return, but I'm not gonna expect it. But like to me, this all represented like a really scarcity mindset and this like idea that mental health is transactional and can be traded. Yes. And so I was wondering, to your point about mental health affecting all of us, in a community sense, do you have a community minded sense of mental health, or like a community mental health way of thinking about things that maybe avoids that scarcity mindset?
That's a good ass question.
No, he said it's for you,
for that question.
I know he said it's for you, but I have thoughts too.
You can go first.
I feel like this speaks to a lot of what we talk about. Is that for me, I think it all comes down to our needs being met, and I feel like, the thing I said about me and my roommates having our separate eggs is like, it's a funny thing to say. I hope, but but like, I think it's important. Like I don't know. Like, you ever seen a fridge full of somebody else's shit, and now you feel like, oh, my life is being cluttered by somebody else, and we live together. We're supposed to.
Hard, yes.
Some shit happened today.
Yes. Fucking asshole.
Oh, that was like a SpongeBob.
Fucking Peter stuffing his goddamn pierogies in the.
Just open up. Oh, brother, this guy stinks. but like, I think we put ourselves in positions where like, where the assumption is that we have our separate lives and we have our separate mental health, and that my shit doesn't feed into your shit. My shit doesn't like. And your shit can only affect me in a negative way, And like, your space is taking up my space. There's no like
no growth that can come out of an exchange.
Yeah, there's no growth. There's no interlocking, interconnectedness. And like, when I say I'm okay with staying in the position I'm at for the rest of my life, I'm like, I could have a roommate for the rest of my life, and that would not bother me. I can share space with somebody, and we can figure out how to live together long term, and how to care for each other if we're really serious about that, and we can go from being roommates on our separate leases, paying our separate rent, to just like two people living in a house together and being an actual community. And I don't know, to me that's what that means, is like, how can we meet each other's needs, and how can we then carry that over into meeting the needs of people around us. I think like seeing the ways that we can interconnect extrapolates to the entire world.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Do you have thoughts, by the way?
It makes me think of a book that I love called The Smell of Rain on Dust. The author, Martin Prechtel, he talks a lot about the community of like living on the res together, and like how indigenous people like innately know how to like hold someone up when they're grieving, and that just makes me think like we're so like, here's the line in the sand, like your roommate sets their thing and they've got my stuff. It's like something that my sister armed me with the other day. She's like, just what does it look like to be a little more curious, to just like ask more questions, you know what I mean? I just think that we're so rigid as a society, and I'm just trying to shed that. I just don't want to be this shit. You know what I mean? I want to have a new experience. And it's just like, you can't have a new experience without challenging yourself to have that new experience, you know? But yeah, in that book, like, the way that he explains, like, when someone dies, like, the family member, like, gets to really grieve and, like, cry and scream, and no one's judging and going, like, oh, my God, they're losing it. Everyone just, like, gathers around them and just, like, when you're fucked up, they, like, carry you inside. And another talk he does, he talks about, like, bathing them when they don't know and they can't bathe, and when they fall into drinking too much, like. And I think about all of our heroes, you know, that like Gil Scott is like my guy. He's my one, you know, and like it doesn't change his legacy, but yeah, like addiction got him, you know. And I just think like what would it have looked like had, you know, the people in his community were like a little more curious.
I think that rigidity you speak to is a byproduct of how everything is commodified. We're commodities. Yeah. Like that's what we've been turned into. And people simultaneously want their little kingdom. They want to be like a little mini king. Mm-hmm. And it started with the land, and then the structures we built on top of it, and then capital, and then so we have all these mechanisms to like you can be a king too, you know? You can be a king, right? And but it carries on into the apartment, the home, so on and so forth. But I really think they hit on the core of it. You know, there are like group therapy, community therapy frameworks that you can, you know, look into. But I think about just the everyday experience, how we are with each other right now, how atomized and separated we are. What would it mean for us to be able to explore these difficult things inside of us in our daily lives in a context in which we don't have to clock in at whatever time in the morning and give like our entire lives to a group of shareholders whose names we don't even know, faces we don't even know. And it makes me think about surveys that are done on, I guess, like happiness in Latin America. And, you know, this is, and this isn't to paint all of Latin America. There's a class system in Latin America, obviously. But a lot of people living in poverty, but they're living together. And they're happier in a lot of places. And you think, gee, why is that? They don't have their mini kingdom, their fence and their whatever the fuck, you know, commodity item, you know, they're with their grandparents and their cousins, and there aren't these sort of like weird pressures there. Maybe that has something to do with it, you know?
I will also, sorry, just speaking to that, you know, like I grew up in a duplex, like owned by my grandfather in Mid-City, you know, like I got to go downstairs and see my grandparents every morning. My aunt lived around the corner. We lived there too. My uncle lived around the corner. Like, my grandfather only wanted to buy in Mid-City because he wanted to, you know, have it in the family for obvious reasons. But it's pretty like that was so normal to me. You know what I mean? That idea of sharing, you know. But yeah, it's like, sadly, yeah, I like things. I like the commodity, you know what I mean? I think...
You're talking like Steve right now.
Steve who?
Lacey.
Harvey?
I was like, Harvey, bro?
No, probably Steve Harvey a little bit too.
I did see a
I like nice things.
I saw a clip of this
2 for 2 on crazy impressions.
I can't do a Steve Harvey.
Has anyone seen this clip of Steve Harvey like eating this like mac and cheese and greens stuffed chicken wing on TV? Okay, I know.
You gonna pull it up and scrub?
Instagram showed me this clip. It was so insane. Just speaking of Steve Harvey.
What's this one right here?
That's a song of the South. It's sauteed collard greens and rice on the inside. And then
Collard greens and rice on the inside.
Collard greens.
Boy, shut up.
I couldn't imagine doing that, like on TV.